Rise up in the morning, beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horses kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. They'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Welcome to Burning Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy. Well, howdy there, daylight burners. Happy Monday. Sorry for not getting an episode out to you on Friday, but hey, it was Christmas program season, and we had 3 of them last week, so I apologize. I'd say it'd never happen again, but it's probably going to happen again, and hopefully you'll deal with it. Anyhow, I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you're ready for Christmas. Hope you got all your shopping done and all that jazz. Man, it's just been a busy freaking fall so far. Man, the drought has bled over into the feeder cattle. Boy, man, I can't remember the last time we doctored this many cattle. And I guess that means that it's job security for me, but it's man, I guess I'm ready for just a little bit of a break. Little bit of a break, and that'll be fine by me. I think I got a good episode for you today. We'll see how it turns out. But I think it's pretty good. It's one of those ones where I've got a few things coming up this week. Try to end the year with a big bang. It's been a good year for me. I know a lot of people out in the real world maybe not doing so hot, but just for myself and all of us here at Burning Daylight, and we've seen a lot of growth. I posted the end of the year Spotify stuff, from the podcast side of things, and we've more than doubled the audience on every level. We're really making a big push to break our all-time downloads record this month, and that'd be just pretty badass in 2021 with our biggest numbers yet. So it's pretty cool seeing all this kind of come together. It's really just it's pretty neat. I can't. We've come a long ways, and I appreciate y'all tuning in. We got some big things in the works. Of course, we got the Elko show coming up, but probably even sooner than that. That should be way sooner than that. We're just got to get some details ironed out, but we're gonna have a regular cattle market report on the Burning Daylight podcast feed. And I'm really excited about that, so I'll, without giving too much away, look forward to that here in the coming weeks. It's gonna be really. I'm really excited about that. I'm really think that's gonna be a good thing. And just overall, man, it got to talk to some really cool people this year. Meet a ton of. I say meet. I haven't gone too many places, but I have got a chance to meet some of the listeners face to face and hang out with them, and that's been awesome. I've got to talk to even more, either on the phone or just messaging back and forth with a ton of you guys, and it just it's really, really, really humbling seeing how many of y'all listen to this little shit show that I've put together, and I truly appreciate it. So we got some really cool stuff. We're gonna end 2021. Uh, try to reach more people than we ever have before, and then 2022 is gonna be it's gonna be a fun one. We're gonna start it off with a bang, and I don't think we're gonna look back. So stay tuned. We got all of that going, but this episode, I wanted to, I guess, kind of pay tribute to the natural disasters that are pretty common throughout our industry. We just had a big fire in northwest Kansas. I believe it was, they called it the 4-county fire. Burned something like 400,000 acres here over the weekend, and killed a whole bunch of cattle. I think it might have killed a couple people as well. And sad deal. Mother Nature is undefeated. As big and bad as we like to play, Mother Nature is not ever really impressed by the size of our collective penises. So as much as we like to think we can control the world, weather kicks in, and we're proven wrong. So anyways, I wanted to kind of give just look back on some of the brutal weather that has happened throughout the U.S., but in particular, I'm going to highlight 1886 and 1887, the big blizzard, which, and no joke, just damn near wiped out the American cattle business before it even got started. But I'm going to start out, I'm going to read a passage from Trails Plowed Under by Charlie Russell, who lived through that 1887 blizzard. So this, from Trails Plowed Under, forget what chapter it is, but anyway, it's called A Savage Santa Claus. Talking about Christmas, said Bedrock, as we smoked in the cabin after supper, and the wind howled as it sometimes can on a blizzardy December night. Puts me in mind of one I spent in the 60s. Me and a feller named Jake Mason, but better known as Beaver, is trapping and prospecting on the head of the Porcupine. We've struck some placer, but she's too cold to work her. Those drove all the game out of the country, and barring a few beans and some flour, we're plumb out of grub, so we decided we'd better pull our freight before we're snowed in. The winter's been pretty open till then. The day we start, there's a storm breaks loose that skins everything I ever seed. It looks like the whole snowmaker's been holding back and turned the whole winter supply loose at once. Cold? Well, it would make a polar bear hunt cover. About noon it lets up so we can see our pack hosses. We're jogging along at a good gait when old Baldy, our lead pack hoss, stops and swings round in the trail, bringing the other three to a stand. His winter caused me to raise my head, and looking under my hat brim, I'm plenty surprised to see an old log shack not 10 feet from the side of the trail. I guess we better take that cayuse's advice, said Beaver, pointing to Baldy, who's got his ears straightened, looking at us as much to say, what am I packing for, pilgrims? Or don't you know enough to get in out of the weather? Looks like you'd loosen these packs. So, taking Baldy's hunch, we unsaddle. This cabin's mighty ancient. Been 2 rooms, but the ridgepole on the rear one's rotted and let the roof down. The door's wide open and hangs on a wooden hinge. The animal smell I get on the inside tells me there ain't no humans lived there for many's the winter. Floor strewn with pine cones and a few scattered bones showing it's been the home of mountain rats and squirrels. Taking it all in all, it ain't no palace, but in this storm, it looks mighty snug, and we get a blaze started in the fireplace and the beans going, it's comfortable. Door to the back's open, and by the light of the fire, I can see the roof hanging down, V-shaped, leaving quite a little space again the wall. Once I had a notion of walking in and prospecting the place, but there's something ghostly about it, and I changed my mind. When we're rolling in that night, Beaver asked me what day of the month it is. If I'm right on my dates, says I, this is the evening the kids hang up their socks. The hell it is, says he. Well, here's one camp Sandy probably overlook. We ain't got no socks nor place to hang 'em, and I don't think the old boy's savvy our foot rag. That's the last I remembered till I waked up along in the night by something monkeying with the kettle. If it wasn't for a snuffing noise I could hear, I'd have took it for a trade rat. But this noise, it's no guess with me, and I call the turn all right, because when I take a peek, there, humped between me and the fire, is the most robust silvertip I ever see. In size, he resembles a load of hay. Fire's down low, but there's enough light to give me his outline. He's humped over, busy with the beans, sniffing and whining pleasant, like he enjoys 'em. I nudge Beaver easy and whispers, Santa Claus is here. He don't need but one look. Yes, says he, reaching for his Henry. But he ain't brought nothing but trouble and more'n a sock full of that. You couldn't crowd it into a wagon box. This whispering disturbs Mr. Bear, and he straightens up till he near touches the ridgepole. He looks 8 feet tall. Am I scared? Well, I'd tell a man. By the feeling running up and down my back, if I had bristles, I'd resemble a wild hog. Cold sweat's dripping off my nose, and I ain't got nothing on me but sluice ice. The bark of Beaver's Henry brings me out of this scare. The bear goes over, upsetting a kettle of water, putting the fire out. If it weren't for a stream of fire running from Beaver's weapon, we'd be in plumb darkness. The bear's up again, bellering and bawling and coming at us mighty warlike, and by the time I get my sharps working, I'm near choked with smoke. It's the noisiest muss I was ever mixed up in. Between the smoke, the barking of the guns, and the bellering of the bear, it's like a hell on a holiday. I'm groping for another cartridge when I hear the lock on Beaver's gun click, and I know his magazine's dry. Lowering my hot gun, I listen. Everything's quiet now. In the sudden stillness, I can hear the dripping of blood. It's the bear's life running out. I guess it's over, says Beaver, kind of shaky. It was a short fight, but a fast one, and hell was popping while she lasted. When we get the fire lit, we'll take a look at the battleground. There lays Mr. Bear in a ring of blood, with a hide so full of holes he wouldn't hold hay. I don't think there's a bullet went round him. The excitement wakens us so we don't sleep no more that night. We breakfast on bear meat. Here's an old bear, and it's pretty stout, but a feller living on bears and on beans and bannocks straight for a couple of weeks don't kick much on flavor, and we're at a stage where meat's meat. When it comes day, me and Beaver goes looking over the bear's bedroom. You know, daylight drives away hants, and this room don't look near so ghostly as it did last night. After winning this fight, we're both mighty brave. The roof caved in with 4 or 5 feet of snow on, makes the rear room still dark, so lighting a pitch pine glow, we start exploring. First thing we bump into is the bear's bunk. There's a rusty pick laying up against the wall and a gold pan on the floor, showing us that the human that lived there was a miner. On the other side of the shack, we ran onto a pole bunk with a weather-wrinkled buffalo robe and some rotten blankets. The way the roof slants, we can't see into the bed, but by using an axe and chopping the legs off, we lower it into view. When Beaver raises the light, there's the framework of a man. He's laying on his left side like he's sleeping and looks like he cashed in easy. Across the bunk he's sleeping on, or across the bunk under his head, is an old-fashioned Captain Ball rifle. On the bedpost hangs a powder horn and pouch with a belt and a skinning knife. These things tell us this man's a pretty old timer. Finding the pick and gold pan causes us to look more careful for what he'd been digging. We explored the bunk from top to bottom, but nary a find. All day long we prospects. That evening, when we're filling up on bear, beans, and bannocks, Beaver says he's gonna go through the bear's bunk. So after we smoke, relighting our torches, we start our search again. Sizing up the bear's nest, we see he'd laid there quite a while. Looks like Mr. Silvertip, when the weather gets cold, starts hunting a winter location for his long snooze. Running onto this cabin, vacant and looking like it's for rent, he jumps this claim and would have been snoozing there yet, but our fire warming up the place fools him. He thinks it's spring and steps out to look at the weather. On his way, he strikes this breakfast of beans, and they hold him till we object. We're looking over his nest when something catches my eye on the edge of the waller. It's a hole, roofed over with willers. Well, I'll be damned. There's his cash, says Beaver, whose eyes had followed mine. It don't take a minute to kick these willers loose, and there lays a buckskin sack with $500 dust in it. Old Santa Claus out there, says Beaver, pointing to the bear through the door. Didn't load our socks, but he brought us plenty of meat and showed us the cash, for we'd never have found it if we hadn't raised the lid. Day after Christmas, we buried our bones, wrapped in one of our blankets where we'd found the cash. It was the best we could do. I guess the dust's ours, says Beaver. There's no papers to show who's his kinfolks, so we splits the pile and leaves him sleeping in the tomb he built for himself. And I don't know when exactly he was speaking about on this particular story, but it sounds a lot like some of the stories that I read through concerning the 1886, 1887 blizzard. So, if you're not familiar with it, after the Civil War, the U.S. cattle market grows exponentially. You got a bunch of people moving out to Texas and the western U.S., rounding up wild cattle, mostly from Texas area, and driving them to different points, either to the railhead in Kansas or up north to Montana, or to different army outposts just to supply beef for troops or settlers or what have you. But in that time, it's one of the biggest boom of the cattle business there's probably ever been. And you got people from all over raising herds. Big money tied up into it, and a lot of ground to run. Most all of it's open range, and it is the heyday for the open range cowboy. I mean, it is just everything you can think of. It's Monty Walsh. You can get on your horse down on the Mexican border, ride all the way up to Canada, and all the way back, and get paid to do it. It just it's a heyday. But 1886 rolls around, and well, hey folks, I hate to interrupt the show. I know it's a good one, but I've got some people that help me keep this whole thing going every week, so I got to tell you about them. And first and foremost, we got Tracy Morrison. They're out of Chelsea, Oklahoma. He is building all sorts of cool custom silver work, buckles, bits, spurs, conchos, candle plates, gun engraving. Does it all. It's really cool stuff. He's a former working cowboy himself, loves the lifestyle, loves the craft, and so he's building cool shit for the working cowboy, and it's priced for the working cowboy. You can find him over on Instagram excuse me, or Facebook. Tracy Morrison Custom Silver. That's TRACIE Morrison, or at T Morrison _ Custom Silver. Just check him out. Just put his name in, TRACIE Morrison, and you'll find him wherever you find him at there on Facebook or Instagram. And yeah, he's a good guy. Check him out. Next up, we've got Scott Hall and Hall's Rocky Mountain Jewelry. And Scott's a friend of the show. You guys know him. You love him. He's a former cowboy himself, and he is a master jeweler, goldsmith, silversmith, repousse, which is stone cutting and setting, like the turquoise you see here on the screen, that he made for my wife. He cut and set that. It's all good stuff. He does all the cowboy stuff, and he's just a really excellent artist. Also does pen and ink art, and yeah, he does all sorts of cool stuff. Buckles. He's gonna be working into some bits. He's working on some other stuff first, but man, if you need some silver work done, Scott's where it's at. So check him out over on Facebook and Instagram. He is Scott Jason Hall, or Hall's Rocky Mountain Jewelry, and then him and his wife have they've got their Instagram account, and that is at Cow Camp Life. So go check them out. Let them know you saw it on Burnin' Daylight. And yeah. Next up, we've got Britney Hasselton and Square Top Leather and Design. She is out of Wyoming right now, and she is building all the cool leather stuff. Chinks, leggings, chaps, shotguns, bat wings, armitas, all that stuff. She does it. Headstalls, purses. She's making purses for all you ladies. So guys, if you need something to get your significant other, you might check her out. And she does really good work. She's a friend of the show. She's been on the show, and she's a cool gal. So go check her out. That is Square Top Leather and Design on Facebook and Instagram. Go check her out. And next up, we've got Cardomax.com. Cardomax is the best supplements out there. Owned and operated by former Navy SEAL Sean Madsen. Cardomax.com. They're all natural ingredients in their supplements. They've got energy intensifier. They've got a Hydromax or the hydration formula. They got an immunity booster, which is really good. I like that stuff, as well as the hydration. They got a recovery and some sample packs and a bunch of different flavors. It's all good stuff. I drink the hydration stuff and the immunity booster every day. It's really good. So and it's all veteran owned. They're giving back to the community. They're doing a lot of cool stuff. So go check them out. Cardomax.com. Use my promo code MOVEYERASS, move your ass, and you'll get 10% off your order. And yeah, it's a good company. I drink this stuff every day. I truly do. So next up, we got Greensreserve.com. This Greensreserve is an all-natural tobacco alternative. It's made from hemp, no THC, no nicotine. I don't know about the CBD. I would assume there's probably something in there, but got 3 flavors: wintergreen, natural, and menthol. Got long cut, fine cut, and if you use my promo code MattGR, you'll get $1 off a can or $5 off a roll. It's a good deal. Stuff tastes really good. The natural is kind of like a straight flavoring, so I really like it. And I still chew tobacco, but I use it for to help focus and stuff. And So like when I'm doing research, I chew Greensreserve. It's good stuff. Greensreserve.com. That's GREENES.com or GREENES reserve.com/shop. Use my promo code MattGR and you'll get $1 off a can or a $5 off a roll. So go check that out. And then if you don't like to hear ads and you just want to get right to the bullshit that I put out, you can head over to patreon.com/Burnin Daylight and you can subscribe there. I got a bunch of different levels. It's we got anywhere from $1 to $100 a month, and there's different perks along the way. And you help me do some cool stuff. So if you'd like to subscribe, like I said, you get ad-free content, you get some bonus content, and you get the episodes earlier than everybody else. So head over to patreon.com/Burnin Daylight, and you can sign up there, and I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks to all the sponsors who helped me out, and let's go ahead and get into the show, shall we? So thanks. Well, hey folks, I hate to interrupt the show. I know it's a good one, but I've got some people that help me keep this whole thing going every week, so I got to tell you about them. And first and foremost, we got Tracy Morrison. They're out of Chelsea, Oklahoma. He is building all sorts of cool custom silver work, buckles, bits, spurs, conchos, candle plates, gun engraving. Does it all. It's really cool stuff. He's a former working cowboy himself, loves the lifestyle, loves the craft, and so he's building cool shit for the working cowboy, and it's priced for the working cowboy. You can find him over on Instagram, excuse me, or Facebook. Tracy Morrison Custom Silver. That's TRACIE Morrison, or at T Morrison _ Custom Silver. Just check him out. Just put his name in, TRACIE Morrison, and you'll find him wherever you find him at there on Facebook or Instagram. And yeah, he's a good guy. Check him out. Next up, we've got Scott Hall and Hall's Rocky Mountain Jewelry, and Scott's a friend of the show. You guys know him, you love him. He's a former cowboy himself, and he is a master jeweler, goldsmith, silversmith, repousse, which is stone cutting and setting, like the turquoise you see here on the screen that he made for my wife. He cut and set that. It's all good stuff. He does all the cowboy stuff, and he's just a really excellent artist. Also does pen and ink art, and yeah, he does all sorts of cool stuff. Buckles. He's gonna be working into some bits. He's working on some other stuff first, but man, if you need some silver work done, Scott's where it's at. So check him out over on Facebook and Instagram. He is Scott Jason Hall, or Hall's Rocky Mountain Jewelry, and then him and his wife have they've got their Instagram account, and that is at Cow Camp Life. So go check them out. Let them know you saw it on Burnin Daylight. And yeah. Next up, we've got Britney Hasselton and Square Top Leather and Design. She is out of Wyoming right now, and she's building all the cool leather stuff. Chinks, leggings, chaps, shotguns, bat wings, armitas, all that stuff. She does it. Head stalls, purses. She's making purses for all you ladies. So guys, if you you need something to get your significant other, you might check her out. And she does really good work. She's a friend of the show. She's been on the show, and she's a cool gal. So go check her out. That is Square Top Leather and Design on Facebook and Instagram. Go check her out. And next up, we've got Cardomax.com. Cardomax is the best supplements out there. Owned and operated by former Navy SEAL Sean Madsen. Cardomax.com. They're all natural ingredients in their supplements. They've got energy intensifier. They've got a Hydromax or the hydration formula. They got an immunity booster, which is really good. I like that stuff, as well as the hydration. They got a recovery and some sample packs and a bunch of different flavors. It's all good stuff. I drink the hydration stuff and the immunity booster every day. It's really good. So and it's all veteran owned. They're giving back to the community. They're doing a lot of cool stuff. So go check them out. Cardomax.com. Use my promo code MOVEYERASS, move your ass, and you'll get 10% off your order. And yeah, it's a good company. I drink this stuff every day. I truly do. So next up, we got Greensreserve.com. This Greensreserve is an all-natural tobacco alternative. It's made from hemp, no THC, no nicotine. I don't know about the CBD. I would assume there's probably something in there, but got 3 flavors: wintergreen, natural, and menthol. Got long cut, fine cut, and if you use my promo code MattGR, you'll get $1 off a can or $5 off a roll. It's a good deal. Stuff tastes really good. The natural is kind of like a straight flavoring, so I really like it. And I still chew tobacco, but I use it for to help focus and stuff. And so like when I'm doing research, I chew Greens Reserve. It's good stuff. Greensreserve.com. That's GREENES.com or GREENES reserve.com/shop. Use my promo code MattGR and you'll get $1 off a can or a $5 off a roll. So go check that out. And then if you don't like to hear ads and you just want to get right to the bullshit that I put out, you can head over to patreon.com/Burnin Daylight, and you can subscribe there. I got a bunch of different levels. It's we got anywhere from $1 to $100 a month, and there's different perks along the way, and you help me do some cool stuff. So if you'd like to subscribe, like I said, you get ad-free content, you get some bonus content, and you get the episodes earlier than everybody else. So head over to patreon.com/Burnin Daylight, and you can sign up there, and I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks to all the sponsors who helped me out, and let's go ahead and get into the show, shall we? So thanks. Well, 1886 was a little different story for him. Up until that point, following the Civil War, it kind of been a cattleman's paradise. It's think Lonesome Dove, Jake Spoon selling Montana to people. It's a cattleman's paradise. Belly deep grass on a horse. Mild winters. even milder summers, plenty of water, and all the land for the taking. So people drive cattle up north out of Texas through Nebraska, the Dakotas, and up into Montana, and are living really good. Cow herds are growing. The American cowboy is born, and I mean times are good. And then 86, summer rolls in, and it's hot, hotter than hell. Just real hot. And got a deal here. So as I said in, go ahead and put this up on screen. But it really was the boom of the cattle business. So between 1866 and 1885, around 5.7 million cattle were driven to market or northern ranges. So coming out of Texas, almost 6 million head of cattle either headed to the railhead or headed to the Dakotas or Montana. But like I said, through much of the late 1870s and into the 1880s, cooler summers and mild winters meant that feeding the animals was relatively easy. Grass and feed were typically pretty plentiful. But that changed in the disastrous winter of 86, 87. Blazing hot summer had scorched the plains, so that when snow started falling in early November, much of the frontier's livestock were already starving and ill-equipped for a hard winter. So you got to remember, back in these days, they weren't seasoned cowhands. They weren't seasoned ranchers for the most part. There were some places down in old Mexico territory that old Spaniard ranches that had been around for centuries at that point. But for the most part, you had people like Richard King and Charlie Goodnight and a few others. But for the most that kind of knew what they were doing, building the cow herd. But for the most part, it was whoever could raise the stock or the money or both. And talking with Boots, he always talks about how years are good. Everybody wants to be a rancher or cowboy, and everybody's got some cows. And as soon as get some lean years, and you find out who really wants to ranch. And this is kind of exactly what happened here. So you have a real hot summer, and then coming on the back of about a decade of just mild winters and easy summers. Just everything was pretty cool in the summer. Winters didn't get too awful cold. Plenty of grass. But then when that real hot summer hit, they didn't have a chance to put up a whole lot of hay. So when the blizzard hit, most of the cattle, once it started snowing, they were pretty well starved out already. This came off the back of the boom of the cattle industry, so everybody had big herd sizes because they were able to. And then get that bad summer, cows are really looking bad, and then the snow starts falling. Nobody could put up enough hay. And so then when spring arrives, millions of animals were dead. And around 90% of the open range cattle rotten where they fell, because even if they survived that initial blizzard, a lot of them just died of starvation. Those presented carcasses as far as I could see. Dead cattle clogged up rivers and spoiled drinking waters. Many ranchers went bankrupt, and others simply called it quits and moved back east where conditions appeared less punishing. Called the event the Great Die-Up. Macabre play on the word roundup. So instead of the Great Roundup, you had the Great Die-Up. And it really, like I said, 90% of the open range cattle are just dead. And it had to have been something to live on the plains back in those days, where he got just like the wholesale slaughter of buffalo, being done by hunters, the government, just and whatever, either to sell the robes or the meat. Very, very little emphasis spent on the meat, but more than anything, just to starve out the Indians. So you've got just piles of buffalo rotting out on the plains, and now you got this nasty ass blizzard that rolls in and knocks out 90% of the cow herd. So, as I said earlier, that's almost 6 million head that got drove out of Texas, either to the railhead or to Montana. And let's say, I don't know what the numbers or percentage of those were, but I would imagine the bulk of them went to railhead for slaughter. So we'll say it's 3/4 of the cattle that came out of Texas went to slaughter. So let's say that 4.5 million, and so you still had 1.5 million head that went up to Montana. And at the time, those plains could support that many cattle, but as everybody knows that lives on the plains, when it's dry, it turns dry real quick, and that grass it don't last long. When you don't have any moisture, the feed gets real scarce real quick. And well, I've got several different accounts. So next one's from True West Magazine, which is a pretty good source. I like them. They got some good articles. It was a blazing hot summer in 1886. It had parched the Great Plains, so the snow began falling in early November. Livestock were already stressed and in no condition to face a harsh winter. Then on January 9th, 1887, a severe blizzard hit, burying parts of the plains under more than 16 inches of snow, which don't sound like a whole hell of a lot when you're grow up in the mountains and you can get 3 foot of snow overnight. And there's no doubt, 6 inches of snow means a hell of a lot more when you're on the plains than it does when you're in the mountains. Bad thing on the plains is when you get snow, you usually get wind, and that wind doesn't stop, and then there's nothing to stop that snow either, so it just blows. And that whiteout blizzard becomes a real dangerous thing out there on the plains. Because of the drought, farmers had been unable to store enough hay for their cattle, and millions of livestock that weren't killed by the brutal winter died of starvation. As far as the eye could see, carcasses clogged up rivers and tainted drinking water. Ranchers went belly up while others pulled up stakes and moved back out east. The loss was also felt by Europeans who had invested heavily in America's cattle business. We've talked about this a bunch. A lot of those big outfits were either English or Scottish owned for the most part. Ranchers and farmers had been dealing with brutal winters since 1881, and after 86, 87, winter hope was raised that the plains were about due for milder winter. But when August began cooling early and September was prematurely chilly, by late November, folks found they were in for another severe winter. This one proved deadlier than the previous year. In late December, a string of blizzards hit. Snow, gale force winds killed 60 people in Kansas. Storm swept down from Alberta, blowing across the plains of eastern Montana. The howling Arctic wind raced along at 45 miles an hour. That's a sustained wind. Like that's not gusts. Like on a day like that, you're having gusts of 70 mile an hour or more. But 45 mile an hour sustained wind. I mean, it's brutal. Temperature dropped to 40 below. Children were caught between schools and home. A farmer was lost between his barn and his house, and his wife perished when she went looking for him. In hours, the storm swept over 780 miles. After 3 days, the winds died down, and the death toll was more than 300. During the following spring, bodies were found in melting snow drifts and isolated refuge. Charlie Russell came to Montana in 1880 at the age of 16, where he hired out on a sheep ranch. He later went to work for former trapper Jake Hoover, who owned a ranch in central Montana's Judith Basin. Okay. Over the next few years, during the brutal winter of 86-87, he was working on the O-Bar H Ranch in the Judith Basin when the owner wrote to the foreman asking how the cows weathered the severe winter. Instead of using words to tell the story, the foreman used one of Kid Russell's watercolors titled Waiting for a Chinook. A Chinook was a Blackfoot Indian word meaning snow eater, warm, dry wind that blows down the east side of the Rocky Mountains at intervals and can cause a rapid rise in the temperature of and temperatures, melting the snow and exposing the grass. The watercolor depicted a gant steer under a gray winter sky being stalked by wolves. Someone added the line, last of the 5,000. Rancher showed the grim illustration to friends and business acquaintances. It was eventually displayed in the window of a shop in Helena, and before long, Charlie began to find steady work as an artist, and in a few years, he would begin earning, in his words, dead man wages. The disastrous blizzards of 86, 87, and 87, 88 brought far-reaching changes to ranching and farming in the West. Pretty well marked the end of the open range ranching where cattle roamed far and wide. Ranchers reduced the size of their herds, began farming operations to grow feed for their herds, and began fencing the ranges. Marked the end of the era. The days of the open range cowboys in the wild, untamed West were gone for good. And well, that's not completely true. For the most part, it did. It was the beginning of the end of that, just open range Wild West cowboy. It lasted for years after that, but it was that was kind of the turning point. Got another article here, and this is from NOAA, the National Weather Service, or NOAA. I'm not National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, I think is what that is. But anyway, despite prior heavy snowfall and brutal conditions in December 1887, several accounts from the Northern Plains reported that January 12th, 1888, started as a surprisingly beautiful, mild day with temperatures well above freezing that melted snow throughout the region. However, the warmth didn't last. Within a few hours, temperatures plummeted below minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Icy winds ripped through the air at almost 60 miles per hour. In the whiteout, between 250 and 500 people perished. Nicknamed the Children's Blizzard, this devastating storm resulted in the deaths of many children on their walk home from school. Contributing factor to the death was the poor construction of many homes and schoolhouses built as the upper Midwest was experiencing a pioneer boom. There's an account of a schoolhouse in Nebraska that lost its roof during the storm. Fortunately, the teacher was able to lead the children to shelter. However, in another instance, a teacher in Plainfield, Nebraska, tried to lead children to her home less than 90 yards from the schoolhouse. The group lost their way, and with the children dying of hypothermia, while the teacher lost her feet to frostbite. Not just her feet. There's another article on that I'll pull up here in a minute, but she had to have everything below the knee amputated, both legs. Here's just a few. So not only did they get a ton of snow, but they got that cold northern wind, and it really, really got cold. So Eureka, California was 20 degrees. Lakeview, Oregon was minus 24. Roseburg, Oregon was minus 6. Boise, Idaho, minus 28. Missoula, Montana was minus 42. Ely, Nevada. Ely gets cold anyways, but minus 36. Minus 30 in Spokane, Washington. Minus 41 at St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And minus 36 in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Coldest temperature during the storm was minus 56.8 degrees at Poplar River, Montana on January 15th. Of course, there were very few weather stations in the far west and Rocky Mountain areas. So many other locations probably would have record low temperatures had they had observation sites at that early point. So the cold wave was preceded by a phenomenal blizzard in the upper plains and Midwest on January 12th through the 13th. And so it says, ironically, this is probably the second deadliest blizzard in U.S. history, aside from the East Coast storm that arrived just a few weeks later. Yeah, so there was, I think it was in March. Yeah, March 12th through the 14th. Another huge blizzard hit, but it was more on the East Coast, New England area, and it probably the same type of snowfall, but in a much heavier populated area. So this is from history.nebraska.gov. And so this was written 59 years after the blizzard, and I'm going to skip a few things, but although conditions differed in somewhat in various parts of the state, most accounts agree that in the early hours of the eventful January 12th were unseasonably warm. Cattle were out in the fields. School children in some areas played outside during the noon recess. In some cases, men were reported to have worked out of doors in their shirt sleeves. Then the wind suddenly changed to the north, driving before it a great mass of thick, blinding snow. Men and animal alike were trapped in freezing wasteland. The thermometer plummeted to 34 degrees below zero. The storm lasted 12 to 18 hours over most of the area. It was followed by a minor local storm. The state was 2 weeks digging itself out. Newspapers were finally able to assemble the details from isolated farms and ranches. It was evident that the loss of life and property sustained in the great blizzard was the greatest ever known in the West. Estimates to the number who died in Nebraska ran as high as 100. In Dakota Territory, 109 lives were lost. So let's see. There's a particularly harrowing aspect of the storm was the fact that it caught so many school children away from home in the tiny one-room schoolhouses with no food and little fuel. The heroism displayed by a number of school teachers and their older pupils in caring for the young children will always share a place in the annals of Nebraska. One of all these, the one who probably gained the most fame was Minnie Freeman of Mira Valley County. When the storm broke, there were 13 children in her school. She tied them together, single file, with herself at the head of the line, and ably assisted by the older pupils, managed to get them to the nearest farmhouse. Popular song of the day, 13 Were Saved, or Nebraska's Fearless Maid, was written in commemoration of her achievement. Lois Royce, teaching near Plainview, attempted to get to a farmhouse with 3 small children. The children perished, and she lost her limbs below the knees. Emma Shattuck, a teacher in Holt County, found refuge in a haystack where she remained from Thursday night until Sunday. She was so badly frozen that both limbs had to be amputated, and she later passed away. This is a pretty interesting one here, too. So Mr. and Mrs. T.C. Porter of St. Paul, Nebraska, wrote to family members in the East of their experiences during the blizzard of January 12, 1888. William G. O'Gara's In All Its Fury. I'm going to read that book. I need to get back to the Cowboy Book Club. I bought a bunch of books at a little antique shop today. So But I'm going to put this on the list in all its fury. A history with reminiscences of the famous blizzard. Mr. Porter prefaced the blizzards in his remarks January 23rd, 1888 letter with a description of his own corn harvest that year, and then remarked, I suppose you have all read about the recent storm we have had in the West, but you can't realize how they are unless you should witness one. On the 12th, there was one of the severest snow and windstorms broke upon us that the country has ever witnessed, without a minute's warning. The morning was dark, foggy, or cloudy, with a little fine snow blowing from the south until about 1 o'clock, when the wind suddenly changed, coming from the north. It appeared as though the clouds had fallen to the ground, and wind fiercely rolling with them over the country. I had just got to town with a load of corn, so I did not get back home until the next day. Mrs. T.C. Porter wrote in her accompanying letter how she and the children fared at home alone during the blizzard. Well, we are having tolerably pleasant weather now, but you ought to have been here the 12th and 13th of this month to have seen a Nebraska storm in all its fury. It was near the middle of the day, and I had just come in from feeding the hogs. Cass had gone to town when I looked out the window, and the cats were on the steps, were whirling around like they were drunk or something. Which is nothing new for the cats. Cats are just dumb. Truly kind of a worthless animal. And clouds of snow were rolling along, sweeping everything in the way. Well, I and the children were all in the house, but with nothing to burn, as it had been warm enough with but little fire. Well, toward the evening, I bundled up and got out to the crib for cobs, and started for the house, and the wind blew me over and over. At last, I caught and crawled to the house, dragging my cobs along. I thought the house would surely blow over. Cracked the plastering upstairs badly. House would rock like a cradle, and the children were frightened nearly out of their wits, and maybe their mother was too. We have had lots of very cold weather this winter. If it wasn't so awful cold here in the winter, we could do very well, but it just freezes the life almost out of a body. And man, there's just so many different stories of just like that. Yeah, I found another good story. Okay, so this is from Kansas, I believe. So we've got January 5th, 1886. Said was beautifully warm, sunny, and very quiet. Changes were coming. Later, Christian Grenbiel, Halston, I recall. The flies flitting about in the barn as if it was midsummer, causing him to remark in German. Rough translation says they won't fly like that by tomorrow morning. Kriebel's words proved to be prophetic. Next morning, the temperature had dropped to 20 below, and the wind was blowing fine snow around so that it was impossible to see. In Caldwell, Kansas, another farmer was also suspicious of the spring-like weather in early January. His daughter later told of how her father observed the weather. It was so warm that the cattle stood and drank water because of the heat. As a result, he feared a storm and drove 2 cow ponies and a light wagon to the new village 18 miles away to lay in a supply of foodstuff and fuel. He barely made it home before the storm hit on January 6th. Then January 9th, 1886, the January 9th, 1886 edition of the Topeka Daily Capital noted that a blizzard, which had been raging with a vehemence unprecedented since Thursday, continued interrupting the railway and all communications. Thermometer registered 40 degrees below zero, and many of the locations had drifts of well over 6 feet. There was places that had 30 or 40 foot drifts, depending on where you're at. But you're looking at the entire northern plains just covered in snow. And this one I guess was from the year before, so 80s. So it had been 85, 86. But then again in 86, 87, and then again in 87, 88. I mean, it was just 3 years of just brutal winter. So the blizzard began in northwest Kansas on January 6th and moved rapidly to the southeast and east. At 2 a.m. on January 7th, the storm roared through Ness City, and by 5 a.m. in Wichita, Harvey County, the snow began to fall around 10:30 p.m. on the 6th, continued for the next 4 days. At times, the blinding snow made objects over 20 feet away invisible. The number of Kansans that froze to death during the blizzard was estimated at 100. Many were simply not prepared. The primitive homes could not provide the needed protection against the chilling temperatures and high winds. Also devastating was the loss of livestock. Cattle left on the open range drifted for miles until they dropped from hunger and exhaustion. In some areas of western Kansas, up to 75% of cattle died during the storm. I mean, just absolutely brutal conditions. And you didn't have Gore-Tex at the time. You didn't have a windbreaker. Everything was made of natural fibers, so you either had cotton or you had wool. Maybe you had a buffalo robe. And you burned either buffalo chips or wood for your heat. And if you were like in the Nebraska or the Dakotas, a lot of times you just lived in a sod hut. And man, you talk about tough. Golly, we don't have any fucking clue what real struggle is like nowadays. And thank God. I mean, I don't want to have to do that. When it gets below 25 degrees, I kind of turn into puss mode and I just start piling layers on. Just layer after layer after layer, and I very rarely have ever just been thankful for the fact that I have that many layers to put on. You know, there's come April or May every year in my rig, there's probably no less than 10 jackets of some sort, ranging from a flannel shirt to, you know, like a heavy Carhartt coat. But all that range, and there's probably about 10 different layers that I can choose from. And what a fucking luxury it is compared to back then, where you just like, man, you better throw a couple more buffalo turds on the fire because it's gonna be a cold sumbitch tonight. Who's in charge of getting the buffalo turds? Because we need a whole shit pot load of them. It's gonna get cold, and I can't imagine. I mean, I spent a winter up in northern Montana in a bunkhouse that had a natural gas heater on a farm tap, and it would freeze up. You know, that gas line would freeze up from time to time, and I'd wake up with a pile of frost on my chest, and that was bad enough. I thought I was roughing it pretty good then. But at least I could go unthaw that line. I could dump a little bit of methanol down that gas line and thaw it out and still have a hot shower within a couple hours. But boy, it was not fun when that shit went out, and I can't imagine just not having anything. But like I said, maybe you'd have some firewood or you'd have some buffalo turds or some some cobs, as they said. So it probably just the husks, corn husks that were twisted up to uh, make them burn longer. Out on the plane, there's plenty of fuel to burn something if you want it to burn for miles at a time. But if you wanted to just build a fire, keep warm, there's you really gotta kind of hunt for fuel. So it's and then you get a storm like that, man. They said 100 people died in Nebraska, about 109 in the Dakotas, another 100 in Kansas. And I don't know what the population at the time was, but 100 people dying. That's even today, that's a big deal. But back then, yeah, you're looking at a far larger percentage of the population, and it truly did just completely change the cattle business, kind of for good, where you had these big conglomerate outfits that lose 75 to 90% of their cow herd in one winter. Even when you're at the time when you're multi-millionaire, that's a big loss. I mean, that's a big loss. And when you're pumping money into a business that has seen nothing but exponential growth up until that point, you're just living high on the hog, and then all of a sudden just get kicked one swift one right in the dick, just bap, just drop you to your knees and make you dry heave a little bit, and then, as I said, you had 85, 86. 86, 87, and 87, 88. So while you're on your knees, you kid another one. Another real swift kick right to the dick. And then one more for good measure, just to make sure you felt it. And here we are thinking that we can control climate change. Oh boy. Yeah, I think We've already had a pretty considerable amount of moisture this winter, and it doesn't show any sign of slowing up, which is a good thing for most people. It's not so great for us in the feedlot, but we'll get through it. We'll take our licks while we got them. But I think we're in for a pretty good chunk of moisture this winter, and boy, we could use it. But boy, we got to get through it too. So it's that's always a fun part. Good thing for us, cows are pretty good at being cows, and they're pretty good at surviving during this shit. So that always helps. But man, I can't imagine. And you're looking at, in certain places, 30, 40-foot drifts. I did a whole episode on the 2007 blizzard back home, and I mean that was a pretty rough one, but it doesn't look like it was even like half compared to that 86, 87 blizzard there on the high plains. And man, we had modern equipment then too, so trying to imagine to digging yourself out of your house and trying to dig the road out with nothing but livestock and pretty crude farming implements. So, thank God we live in the time that we do, but also thank for God for those people that stuck it out and made it possible for us to be living here today. It's boy, they were something else back then. I'm really grateful that I didn't have to live in those times. As romantic as it sounds sometimes, then you see something like that, and where you might uncover your neighbor on your way to church next May, maybe. He's probably around here somewhere. You gotta wait for the snow to melt off so you can give him a proper burial. Holy shit, man! That's a whole different level of dark. And yeah, I'm truly thankful that we don't have to deal with that anymore. Anyhow, I hope that kind of puts stuff into perspective. You know, like times have been tough here lately, but boy, they haven't been that tough. And I think that's a message that we can take a lot of lessons from, just in everyday stuff. That oh, things seem real shitty right now, and they are. Don't get me wrong, they are. But man, compared to what our ancestors went to, it ain't nothing. So there's always that, and I'm thankful about that. So anyway, I hope we'll have a couple more episodes this week. I'm not sure when we'll get the market report going, but look for that here soon, and that'll be a regular thing. And I think you're gonna like it. I know you're gonna like it. And until then, I hope you all have a Merry Christmas. I'll be talking to you before then for sure. But just in case this is the last one you listen to before Christmas, have a very Merry Christmas. If we have any Jewish listeners, I know BB Noise listens every now and then. She's a Jewish gal down in Vegas. So all our Jewish listeners, happy Hanukkah. I think it might be over. If it is, I hope it was good. If it's not, I hope it still is good. I don't know. I'm not sure when that. I know it was happening. 8 or 9 days, something like that. But anyway, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and on the off chance that we have any Kwanzaa subscribers, now happy Kwanzaa too. I'm not sure what that all entails, but sure it's a good time. Anyways, we got some more stuff. Me and Aaron still working on a Christmas Carol. We'll get it out for you, and then I'm gonna try to do something cool for end of the year wrap up episode. So stay tuned. We got some good content coming, and boy, I sure appreciate y'all for tuning in and humoring me on this little journey that we've been on the last several years. So appreciate it. It's only getting better from here, and thanks for sticking around. And on that note, move your ass or burning daylight.